Hi everyone, thank you very much for joining us for another story here at Annie Narrates. The title for today's story goes like this. Mother-in-law takes over my wedding planning, and when I stop her, she tries to ruin everything by canceling my venue, but my fiance and friends get everything sorted out and give my mother-in-law a taste of her own medicine that ends with everyone in the family abandoning her for my wedding. Hi everyone. I, 32 female, got married a week ago. My wedding was so full of drama, and I didn't get a chance to ride this because my husband Richard, 34 male, left immediately for our honeymoon. But now I am back, and having to deal with the consequences of the drama that unfolded on our wedding day. 3 years ago, I started using a dating app, and that's when I first met Richard. At the time, I wasn't really thinking about finding a serious relationship, just someone to chat with and have fun. But as fate would have it, Richard and I clicked, and things took an unexpected turn. Our story began in the digital world, chatting and getting to know each other through messages. It felt exciting to meet someone new, and little did I know, it would lead to something beautiful. As we continued talking, I started to feel a connection growing between us. Richard was living in a different state, miles away from his family, just like me. Despite the distance, our virtual connection deepened, and we soon found ourselves falling in love. It was a surprise, but a delightful one. The miles between us seemed insignificant compared to the feelings we were developing for each other. We decided to take the next step and meet in person. Our first face-to-face meeting was nerve-wracking, yet filled with excitement. It was like meeting an old friend after a long time, even though we had only known each other through screens. Spending time together in person made our bond even stronger. We laughed, shared stories, and discovered the joy of being together. Fast forward to last year when Richard, being the romantic that he is, decided to propose. It was a moment that caught me off guard but filled my heart with immense happiness. He planned a surprise proposal, and I was completely oblivious to it. It happened during a weekend getaway that we had planned, making the occasion even more special. My family lives in one state, and Richard's family lives in another. Due to the geographical distance, we couldn't introduce each other to our families right away. It wasn't until last year, after Richard proposed, that we were finally able to bring our families together. Both of us also moved to Texas after Richard got a new opportunity and I switched to remote work mode. Planning a wedding is no easy task. After Richard and I got engaged, it was time to dive into the world of wedding preparations. I had heard that it could be stressful, so I was doing my best to stay calm. Richard was there, giving his full support and trying to help me out. But then came a bit of a change. Richard's mom, Alexis, 62 female, who I thought had good intentions, wanted to be super involved in planning the wedding. While it's great to have family support, her involvement was causing a bit of stress. She had strong opinions about everything and kept suggesting changes, making the wedding planning process a bit more complicated than I had imagined. One of the main issues was decision-making. Alexis was enthusiastic about giving her input, and at times, it felt like she was making the decisions instead of us. From choosing the venue to picking the color scheme, she had a lot to say. It was important to me that the wedding reflected both Richard's and my tastes, but it seemed like every decision had to align with her vision. For example, when it came to selecting the venue, she had a particular place in mind that didn't quite match what we had envisioned. It became a delicate balance of trying to respect her opinions while also staying true to what we wanted. I found myself in a tricky situation, torn between making everyone happy and sticking to our original plans. The wedding dress became another point of contention. I had my heart set on a particular style, but Alexis had different ideas. She suggested dresses that were more traditional, while I was leaning towards something more modern. It felt like a tug of war between tradition and personal style, and finding the middle ground was becoming a challenge. The wedding planning adventure continued, and things got a bit tricky when we reached the venue decision. My friend had this amazing property where he often hosted weddings. It was like a dreamland, close to a river with colorful flowers everywhere, making it the perfect spot for a magical celebration. The property had a charming vibe, with a serene river flowing nearby and an abundance of blossoming flowers all around. Picture this: A picturesque landscape, the gentle sound of water, and vibrant flowers creating a backdrop straight out of a fairy tale. It was everything I had imagined for our special day. Now here's where it got a bit challenging. Richard's mom, Alexis, had a different plan in mind. She really wanted us to tie the knot in her church. The thing is, neither Richard nor I are big on religious stuff. We're more into creating a wedding that feels true to us, and Alexis' church wasn't exactly our cup of tea. I took her to see the magical property, hoping she would fall in love with it just like we did. I explained that my friend was letting us have the venue at a much lower cost as a gift, making it a budget-friendly and beautiful choice. But alas, Alexis wasn't convinced. She had her heart set on the church, and no matter how much I tried to explain our preferences and the cost benefits of the other venue, she wouldn't budge. Alexis had concerns about the outdoor setting, worrying about weather issues and practicalities. She believed the church was a more secure and traditional choice. I tried my best to assure her that we had everything under control, even showing her backup plans for unexpected weather changes. I emphasized the personal significance of the property and how it resonated with our vision for the wedding. However, she remained steadfast in her preference for the church. It was a bit frustrating because I wanted our wedding to be a reflection of us, our tastes, our style, and our connection. Despite the challenges, Richard and I stood firm in our decision, hoping Alexis would eventually understand and support our choice. We really thought that she understood. After I shared the enchanting venue with Alexis, I believe she understood our choice. However, a few days later, I got a surprising call from my friend who owned the property. He sounded confused and worried. Alexis had apparently called him, saying that I wanted to cancel the venue. This news hit me like a bolt out of the blue. I was shocked and upset because I had never expressed any desire to cancel the venue. We had even made a deposit to secure the spot for our special day. I quickly assured my friend that there was some misunderstanding and that I had no intention of canceling. I explained to him that Alexis must have gotten things all mixed up. It was disheartening to realize that she did this, but I didn't want to air out dirty laundry in front of everyone. I asked my friend not to cancel the venue and to disregard any such calls from Alexis in the future. He reassured me that he understood and promised to stick with our original plan. As the call ended, a wave of frustration and sadness swept over me. I found myself sitting there, tears streaming down my face. When Richard came home from work, I couldn't keep it to myself any longer. I needed to share everything that happened with Alexis. I sat him down and spilled the beans about the call from my friend and the confusion caused by Alexis. It was a tough conversation because I realized that if we wanted a wedding without drama, we needed to address the situation. I put my foot down and told Richard that I didn't want Alexis at our wedding. Initially, he was a bit resistant. Family matters can be complicated, but he didn't want to upset his mom. But as we talked it out, he began to see the stress and frustration this was causing me. We both agreed that for the sake of our big day, we needed to find a solution. We brainstormed and decided that a direct approach might make things worse. If we told Alexis outright that she couldn't come, it could lead to more trouble. So we came up with a plan, a bait-and-switch strategy, to make sure our wedding day stayed drama-free. Richard and I hatched a plan. We decided to tell Alexis that the magical property where we originally planned to get married was no longer available. We pretended that they gave our spot to someone else, and now we had to switch to getting married at a church. It was a bit tricky, but we thought it would be the best way to avoid any conflicts. To add a touch of authenticity to our story, we got Richard's sister on board. She became our secret ally in this mission. Our task was to make sure that Alexis didn't find out that I was still going to have my dream wedding at that beautiful property. We planned a family meeting to break the news to Alexis. We gathered, and with careful words, we explained the situation. Richard's sister played a crucial role in supporting our story. We mentioned that due to some unexpected changes, the venue had to cancel our reservation, and they gave our spot to another couple. We pretended to be disappointed, but understanding, emphasizing that it was out of our control. To make the story more believable, we shared that we found an alternative solution: getting married at a church. We highlighted the positive aspects of the church, like its charm and historical significance, to shift the focus away from the property. Richard's sister, being in on the plan, added her agreement and support to make it seem like a unified family decision. It was a bit nerve-wracking, as we didn't want Alexis to catch on to our secret. We had to be careful with our words and expressions, making sure everything seemed genuine. To keep up the charade, we continued discussing the church plans whenever the wedding came up. We talked about the church's history, the beauty of the ceremony, and how meaningful it would be to our families. Richard's sister played her role perfectly, reinforcing the idea that the church was now the chosen venue. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, we quietly continued with the preparations for the actual wedding at the magical property. It was like planning a secret mission, with Richard's sister as our trusted ally. We had to coordinate details carefully to ensure Alexis didn't accidentally discover the truth. In our plan, we decided to have a conversation with Alexis about the wedding, but not mention the recent incident. We would focus on other aspects, discussing general details and keeping the atmosphere positive. The idea was to make her feel involved and excited without bringing up the potential for conflict. We planned to gently steer her towards other responsibilities, like helping with the different aspect for the wedding that wouldn't cause friction. By diverting her attention, we hope to create a more harmonious atmosphere while ensuring that our day remained drama-free. On the big day, I got all dolled up at my place and headed to the wedding venue, following the plan that we made to keep Alexis in the dark. Meanwhile, everyone else, including Richard and our close ones, went straight to the real wedding venue, my friend's property. Little did Alexis know what was really happening. So, Alexis must have arrived at the church, all dressed up and ready for what she thought would be a wedding ceremony. But to her surprise, the church was empty, and there was no sign of a wedding happening. I can only imagine how she must have felt. Confused, upset, and probably a bit angry. During this time, while she was at the church, we were having our ceremony at the real wedding venue. The property was everything I had dreamed of, with flowers, the sound of the river, and the love of our friends and family filling the air. It was a beautiful day, and the ceremony went off without a hitch. As I walked down the aisle, surrounded by nature's beauty and the smiling faces of our loved ones, I felt a wave of happiness and gratitude. The sun was shining, and everything seemed just perfect. The property, with its vibrant flowers and the gentle river nearby, provided a stunning backdrop for our vows. We exchanged our promises under the open sky, surrounded by the people who mattered most to us. The atmosphere was filled with love and joy, creating a magical moment that we would cherish forever. Our close ones were there to witness our union, and their support added an extra layer of warmth to the occasion. Meanwhile, Alexis, unaware of our real ceremony, was trying to reach us, wondering where we were. It was a tough decision to avoid her calls, but we knew that revealing the truth in the middle of the ceremony could have caused unnecessary drama. Our focus was on creating a beautiful and stress-free celebration of our love. As the day went on, it seemed like our plan was working, and Alexis remained in the dark about the real wedding venue. However, it turned out that someone from the family spilled the beans, and during the middle of our reception, she made a grand entrance, wearing a white dress of all things. Yes, she chose a white dress, the color traditionally reserved for brides. Later, I found out that she wasn't originally wearing white, but changed into it before crashing our reception. Imagine the surprise and confusion when she walked in, trying to steal the spotlight in her white dress. It was a bit shocking to say the least. Instead of blending in and celebrating with us, she wanted all the attention for herself. It was a strange and rude move that caught everyone off guard. To make matters worse, she grabbed the microphone and started talking. She began airing her grievances, saying that her son Richard had supposedly abandoned her for his new wife. That's me. The room felt silent as she tried to make a scene. It was uncomfortable and frankly quite disrespectful on what should have been a joyous day. Fortunately, Richard's sister had already set the record straight. She had informed everyone about the mix-up and the real ceremony that took place earlier at the magical property. So when Alexis started spouting off her accusations, our friends and family were already aware of the truth. Despite Richard's sister's efforts to clarify the situation, Alexis insisted that everyone should leave our reception. It was clear she wanted to create chaos and make a big fuss. However, by that point, most of our guests were already enjoying themselves and had a bit of a buzz going on. Security was on its way to handle the situation, and Alexis' disruptive behavior led to them escorting her out of the venue. It was a tough moment, but it had to be done to ensure the peace and enjoyment of our wedding day. The security team handled the situation professionally, helping us get back to celebrating without further disruptions. After Alexis was escorted out, the atmosphere lightened up again, and we continued to enjoy our reception. The music played, people danced, and the love and joy we had experienced earlier in the day returned. It was a reminder that, despite the unexpected drama, our wedding day was about celebrating love and unity with the people who truly cared about us. In the end, we didn't let Alexis' rude behavior ruin the happiness of our special day. The support from our friends, family, and the security team ensured that we could continue creating beautiful memories without any more disruptions. When we returned from our honeymoon, I talked to my mom about everything that happened. She had a different perspective and thought I took things too far by not letting Alexis know about the real wedding venue. At that time, I was still basking in the joy of our honeymoon, and the anger I felt towards Alexis was kind of buried beneath it all. But as my mom shared her thoughts, a feeling of guilt started creeping in. I began to wonder if I was in the wrong for not telling my mother-in-law about the wedding venue. After all, she missed out on the wedding of her only son. It made me question if my actions were fair, or if I should have handled things differently. It's tough when family dynamics get tangled up with emotions, and I started to second-guess my choices. So, am I the a-hole for not telling my mother-in-law about the wedding venue? After posting the original post and taking some time to reflect, Richard and I decided it was time to bury the hatchet and talk to Alexis face-to-face. So the next weekend, we gathered our courage and drove to her house. To break the ice, I brought along some homemade lasagna because I didn't want to arrive empty-handed. We wanted to mend things and find a way to move forward. When we got to Alexis' house, she told us to come in, but I could feel the tension in the air. The atmosphere was icy, and it was clear that there were unresolved issues between us. As we sat down, even the small talk felt forced, and it seemed like a cloud of discomfort hung over the room. Richard, trying to ease into the conversation, began by expressing his feelings. He shared that he didn't want our relationship to take this turn, but he felt Alexis left him with no other choice. The air grew heavier as we delved into the reasons behind the recent events. It was a difficult conversation, with emotions running high and words carefully chosen to avoid further escalation. I tried to contribute to the conversation, explaining that our intention was never to hurt Alexis. We wanted our wedding day to be a joyous occasion for everyone, and the decisions we made were to ensure a peaceful celebration. However, Alexis remained firm in her belief that we should have included her in every detail. The exchange of words continued, with each side expressing their perspective. The tension in the room became palpable, and it was clear that finding common ground wouldn't be easy. Despite our attempts to explain and mend the situation, Alexis seemed unwilling to let go of her grievances. As the conversation reached a peak, Alexis, with frustration evident in her voice, told us that maybe it was best for us to leave. The statement hung in the air, and there was a moment of silence that felt heavy with disappointment. It was a challenging and emotionally charged encounter, and it seemed like finding a resolution would take more time and effort than we had anticipated. Feeling the tension rise, we decided to respect Alexis' request and left her house. The attempt to mend fences had not gone as planned. Even though Alexis' refusal to forget and move on didn't bother me much, I could see the hurt in Richard's face. It pained me to see him like that. So I decided to take matters into my own hands. The next day, I went back to Alexis' house, determined to have a woman-to-woman talk with her. As I sat down with Alexis, I wanted to make it clear that whatever happened was between her and me, and it shouldn't affect her relationship with Richard. I tried to explain that my intention was never to humiliate her or the family, but rather to ensure a peaceful and joyful wedding celebration. I told her that holding on to the truth wasn't helping anyone, especially Richard. who was genuinely hurt by the situation. Alexis, however, remained firm in her stance. She expressed that the whole family had humiliated her and she couldn't simply forget and move on. The pain in her voice was evident, and it seemed like she was carrying a heavy burden of disappointment and resentment. Feeling frustrated and angry, I decided to be honest with her. I told her that the consequences of the situation were a result of her own actions. If she hadn't tried to sabotage the wedding and had instead been supportive, she could have been a part of the celebration. It was a tough conversation, with emotions running high on both sides. As I expressed my feelings, Alexis's response was to tell me to leave once again. The atmosphere was tense, and it became clear that we were in an impasse. I left her house, feeling a mix of frustration and disappointment. I had tried my best to mend things and find common ground, but it seemed like Alexis was not willing to let go of her grievances. Reflecting on the conversation, I realized that despite my efforts, there might be nothing more I could do to change Alexis' perspective. Oh boy, let me catch you up on everything that's been going on. It's been about 2 months since my last update, and life took a crazy turn. So, remember how I gave up on trying to mend things with Alexis but Richard hadn't? Well, last week he came to me in a panic, saying Alexis wasn't at her house anymore. She had sold it. I was shocked and asked Richard what happened. He told me that he couldn't reach Alexis, so he went to her house. To his surprise, the place had been empty for days, with newspapers on the porch and a mailbox overflowing. I was worried, and he was too. He didn't know where Alexis was, and it was stressing him out. Trying to keep things under control, I called Richard's sister and filled her in on the situation. She promised to reach out to everyone she knew and get back to us. About half an hour later, she called, saying she spoke to Alexis' sister's daughter. Turns out, Alexis had sold her house and moved to our retirement home in the city. We got the address and went there the next day. When Richard confronted Alexis, asking why she didn't tell anyone, she taunted him. She said that he didn't have a problem abandoning her on his wedding day, so she figured he didn't care. It was a tough conversation, and she told Richard to go away and let her be in peace. The drive back home was silent. Richard didn't say much. I apologized to him, feeling sorry for everything that was happening. He reassured me that it wasn't my fault. I asked him what his mom said, and he told me that she basically asked him to come back and see her after I supposedly dumped him in a few years. It made me angry, but I didn't want to add to Richard's pain. I just focused on making the next few days as comfortable as possible for him. It's crazy how our honeymoon period got disrupted by all this. I promised Richard that I'm here for him, no matter what he needs. It's a tough situation, and I can't believe we're dealing with this so soon after getting married. Alexis has really thrown a wrench into what was supposed to be our happy time. Hey everyone, time for my final update. Things have settled down a bit. Alexis is living in the retirement home, and Richard and I try to visit her whenever we can. The visits are still a bit chilly from her side, but as long as she's okay with Richard, I'm okay with it. On the bright side, Richard and I are happily married, and it feels like a bliss. We're navigating through the ups and downs together, and it's been a journey filled with love and understanding. Our marriage is strong, and we're grateful for the support we've received from all of you. And that was a wrap up for today's story. Thank you very much for listening. Smash that like button for me, and subscribe for more stories. Thanks again, and we'll be seeing you in the next one.